Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Brian Milne. Warden Brian Milne of Grey County. Always got to throw the honorific in there, even though Brian is certainly no stranger to this show. And Brian, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Politically Speaking.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here, David.
Yeah. Now, it is snowing right now as we are doing our show, and how are the bananas down in Southgate?
The crop is just coming off. It's a good crop this year, but the snow is slowing things down a little bit.
Okay, well,
but we're managing fine.
as long as the farmers are getting the crop off, no matter what it is, whether it's bananas or corn or soybeans or whatever.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
Yeah, the harvest, the corn and the soybeans are done. The corn, there's a little bit left to go yet, but for the most part, guys are done.
Yeah. I when I'm driving to work and back, I see a lot of fields that very quickly have been transformed from fields of corn to or standing corn to basically getting ready for next year.
Yep. No, I think it's been a pretty good year for them.
Well, I was going to ask you, has it been a good year for the farmers here in Grey County?
I think so. On balance, I mean, there's always those that'll want to chew a little bit about the weather or whatever, the markets and so on. But on balance, I would say it's been a pretty good season for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to hear because I get, farmers feed cities, and if whatever you're growing, it ends up in our mouths one way or the other.
That's right. And we are truly blessed to live in this part of the world where there's such a bounty of products that are grown locally and not too far away.
Very true. And we do not have the conflicts that other parts of the world have, where I'm thinking of Ukraine specifically, where farmers' fields are unfortunately in conflict zones mined.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. I read as I farm myself, so I get a few farm publications in. One of them has a regular column in there where a fellow talks to a farmer in the Ukraine. Here in this part of the world, you're running a $500,000 machine and a belt blows apart. Well, you just go to the dealership and get a new belt. I mean, the price is crazy, but at least their belt's there. I don't know where you go in Ukraine in the middle of a war zone for a new belt for anything. The resourcefulness of those producers over there is amazing. They continue and even just the state of mind that they keep going in the face of virtually no markets. It's dangerous to say the least. It's an interesting context as to why people do what they do where they are.
Very true. But I do know that, and I've seen pictures of Ukraine farmers driving those green and yellow machines.
Yep. There's lots of that. The large machinery companies are all over the globe.
They are. Well, let's talk about the year in retrospect, because we're coming to the end of your term as warden, and that's well, it is and it isn't, because we'll talk about that as well, because it's not while your term is ending, you got to run for re-election.
That's right. In Grey County, the warden is afforded a 1-year term, or a term 1 year at a time, which is different than some places. Some places have gone to a 2-year term, and in fact, there are several municipalities in the province that when you're elected warden, you're the entire electoral term, 4 years. But Grey County continues to stay at a 1-year term. You're eligible to run as many times as you want, but typically, at least common practice recently has been that if you've done a reasonable job, the council will allow you to run for a second year, and I'm choosing to run again for a second year because I'm looking forward to leading this council, which I think is doing a great job. And so we'll see next Tuesday how that works out for me. Right.
Because it could indeed be an acclamation if no one decides to step up.
Could be. Yep.
Yeah. Now, which leads me to the question: what is the actual process that you use? Is it show of hands, drawing short straw?
No, it's a ballot exercise. I am told that many years ago, prior to me being on county council, you had to raise your hand and vote that way, as you do for every other vote, even on today on every other ballot, you must raise your hand. So this is the only secret ballot that is allowed under the Municipal Act for counties to use to elect the warden, and that's what we choose to do at Grey County.
Sure. Now, is there how shall I say this? Yeah, is there campaigning involved for the warden?
Come on, David, this is politics.
Hey, I asked you a straight question.
Of course there's campaigning. Absolutely there is. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's more the old style, handshaking, chatting them up, that sort of thing. What do you want to see? What don't you want to see? That kind of thing. There's no pounding stakes in the ground, putting signs up and all that kind of stuff, because I'm running to lead or against, 17 other potential candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So
basically, instead of 1,700 or 17,000 ballots, it's 17.
Yes. Well, 18 if you include yourself.
Sure. Because you get to vote. You can vote for yourself.
Oh, okay. That's right. And I'll be honest, I plan to.
Of course, you wouldn't be a politician if you didn't.
Exactly.
You always know that no matter at the end of the day, at the end of the election, if there's only one vote for you, it's yours.
That's right. And if there was no votes for you, you start to question the system. But no,
very good point.
The clerk's department at the county does an amazing job of keeping it very straightforward and making sure that everybody understands the rules, and it rolls out flawlessly every year.
It's interesting. You mentioned the staff. It's the clerk's office at the okay, because I think those are that office and those officers are kind of the unsung heroes of our government system, municipal government system, because I've watched certainly Owen Sound Council that it is the clerk who provides the information, and
Absolutely.
they know their process.
Yes, they do. They know the Municipal Act inside, out, backwards, frontwards. I would be completely lost, probably, at a lot of stages in county council meetings if the clerk wasn't sitting immediately to my left. And then her assistant, the deputy clerk, sits next to her. So I feel extremely confident sitting there between the clerk and the CAO on the other side of me. I have all the resources of the county at my hand, and they guide me probably more than they should probably, or need to. I should probably be a little more.
Not need to.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that maybe didn't sound right, but I tend to. I remember years ago I was on Southgate Council, still am, but when I first got on, the mayor of the day, he said, just remember, you can do whatever you want in a council meeting unless somebody objects. And then you got to go to the rule book and find out, how is this supposed to happen? So I still lean on that a fair little bit. Just, when the meeting's flowing, there's nuances to rules and such, but at the end of the day, there has to be a very definitive rule about anything, really. And the clerk's department does an excellent job of making sure that I'm aware of exactly how that's supposed to happen. But there are times where, yeah, it maybe isn't strictly by the book, but if nobody objects, drive on, get the job done.
The other thing that what the clerk does is the clerk also helps you get out of a jam. I have seen this more than once that a mayor has leaned over and said, "What should we do now?"
Yes. Oh, I do that quite frequently. Absolutely. And Tara, who is our clerk, Tara Warder, she's always prepared, and she does a marvelous job of keeping me on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a big shout out to our clerks at all of our municipalities for the unsung work they do.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my own local clerk, Lindsay Green. She does a great job down here in Southgate too.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Southgate, you are still the tallest point in Ontario?
Yes, we are.
The water tower? Okay,
yep,
good.
The water tower is still full of water, so it's the highest body of water in Ontario.
Excellent. Excellent. We just had to make sure of that. There had been a flood, I think.
Yeah, no, the frost hasn't changed that.
Good. And it's not expected to freeze either.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, let's switch it up a bit, because I wanted to ask you, as you've been warden for a year, you came in with a relatively new council. I was reading that some of the old stories from your first term, and you came in with a council of what, about 50% were first time county councillors.
9 of them were first term county councillors, absolutely. But now none of them this term were absolutely new to municipal politics. Mm-hmm. There were 2 or 3 last term that were absolutely brand new to municipal politics. But this term, everybody has some experience at the local level, but 9 of them were new at the upper tier.
Sure. Yep. Do you find that made a difference? I mean, you're a veteran of county council.
It does. It does. Absolutely, it does. Because, everybody takes differing times and approaches to how to get their feet under them. So you find for the first little while that, there are some that may not participate as much as you think they should. But that's okay. Everybody takes their own time, as I said, to find their own feet, to their own way. But I find now, after a year, we have a really strong team of 18 councillors that know their stuff. They come prepared, and they're engaged. The biggest challenge I find for at least new councillors is figuring out when is that county hat on and when is my lower tier hat on. And it's not an easy job for anybody, whether you've been at it for a year or 10 or 20 years. It's hard to make that distinction, and it's hard to be seen to not support something that's going to impact your local municipality. It's not easy. I get that, because let's be honest, you're elected by your local council. And so to be seen to be doing something that is maybe contrary to what is beneficial to your local municipality, it's not always easy. But you have to remember, when you're sitting at the county council table, that's the hat you have to wear, and what is good and what is not for the county as a whole. And like I say, not everybody gets that right off the bat, but I think at least this council, I think they do get it. Well, I know they do, and it shows. We do a good job, I think.
Would we be better served by having a single tier system as opposed to a top or lower tier?
Well, I suppose that depends on how you define better served.
Well, I'm thinking generally. I mean, one of the things that people forget, and I've seen this over the last 20 years, is that people forget that upper tier does this, lower tier does that. With a single tier, where there was one tier that did everything, it would mean a bigger government, perhaps. Gosh, you'd have to renovate the county council chamber again.
Perish the thought. Just don't even say that, please. Just don't even. No.
I knew that would get you, Brian.
No.
but in all seriousness, that's a cosmetic thing. But because heck, you could build a new legislature at Grey Roots. But in all seriousness, would we be better served as citizens and with to have the services consolidated at one in one tier of government?
I'm not convinced. Certainly, there would be some things that probably would be better, countywide. I'm thinking something like transportation services, like roads, maintenance, building, bridges, all that kind of stuff. Probably would be better because those are typically very large ticket items, high expertise, and draw a lot of resources. So probably those would be better served from the upper tier or from a single tier. But I guess I'll use the analogy. I'll go back to amalgamation 23, 4 some odd years ago now. The expectation was, we're going to save a bucket of money. Well, I used to have a deputy mayor here in Southgate that said, well, if he was asked, when are we going to start saving money? And he'd say, any day now. Well, we never did. We never saved any money. We ended up with a few less politicians, but that was it. Instead of going to Holstein to find your tax bill or whatever you wanted to deal with, now you drive to Hopeville, which the same mayor used to say, well, it's equally inconvenient to everybody. I could see the same thing if, and I'm on here as warden, so I should be looking at it from a county perspective, but I'll talk about from Southgate's perspective. If we went to a single tier, in all likelihood, the base of government would be in Owen Sound, where it is now, and that's probably where it should be. Now, if I got any issues with government services, I'm driving to Owen Sound, which isn't really convenient. So is that better served? I don't think so. And but in terms of economics, I think there's a pretty good case to be made for a single tier government in a lot of cases.
I think your point is very well taken. That the big ticket items like roads, bridges, engineering stuff, heck, even waste management,
social services. Yeah,
social services. Well, social services already are, but
right.
But at the same time, those big ticket items that would benefit from economies of scale, it makes some sense to have a single tier.
It
but
does.
But at the same time, I could see people who lived in Hanover wonder why do I have to drive to Owen Sound to get to do this or that.
So and to be maybe cynical somewhat, take it a step further and say, well, why doesn't the province just do it all?
Mm-hmm.
Or the feds, for that matter. I mean,
very true. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
I mean, we could talk about that for days. But I just think that, there's something to be said for running into a local politician at the grocery store or at the feed mill or wherever, and if you have an upper tier government or a single tier government, now you're not paying your local politician 25, 30,000 a year. You're paying them 100 and whatever. You look at the city of Toronto and, they get well over $100,000 for a politician down there. And maybe that's what they should be getting paid. I don't know, but
and that's a full-time job in a place like Toronto.
Right. Yeah. So it's a full-time job. I'm just a poor farmer down here that happens to be in politics. And so, I think there's something to be said for keeping your foot on one side of the fence that keeps you grounded in what's going on in the community. So I wouldn't be adverse to having the debate, but I'm not convinced that a single tier would be overall the best option.
Well, I think that you make a very valid point that there is something to being able to walk up to your local politician in the grocery store and buttonholing them on this, that, or the other thing, or picking up the phone and calling them, or sending them an email.
Absolutely.
Saying, excuse me.
Yep. No, absolutely. And you know what? That's not to say that, you meet Rick Byers on the street that you can't do the same thing with him. but the odds of meeting him are greatly diminished throughout the whole county.
Or Alex Ruff.
Or Alex Ruff. Yep.
Ben Lobb or even Lisa Thompson.
Yep, for sure. And, you know, those folks do a great job, but they can't be everywhere all the time.
Very true. Very true. So municipal politicians, they say that it is the closest government to the people. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so let's just say that if anybody is thinking of running for municipal office, talk to Brian. I'm sure he would be more than happy to bend your ear on the pluses and negatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a calling. It really is. And I only say that half joking because we've had different family members over the years be in politics, and it's no different than being any other being involved with your community, whether it's a service club or anything to donate your time. It's being involved, being engaged, and hopefully making your community a better place for everyone.
And if you're lucky, you get to farm at the same time.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. So if I were to ask you, what have been the big successes of 2023 for you as warden?
I think some of the big successes for me, as we talked about before, was the gelling of the council as a really good working team. I've seen other terms of not necessarily county council, well, even county council, but at lower tiers where, the team doesn't just really get it together before the end of the term. This council, I think we've developed a really high level of trust and cooperation. We can get stuff done, and we have got a fair bit of stuff done. I look at, for example, the general store out at Morrison Village. That facility is really cool, if I can use that term. If anybody's been out to Grey Roots, they know what a wonderful facility or what a wonderful building that is. Other things such as 14th Street, the housing facility that we've rebuilt out of an old building downtown Owen Sound, and hopefully CMHA will come across with the funding soon. Or not CMHA, the Ministry of Health, rather, is going to come across with the funding so it can be staffed by CMHA. Sorry, there we go. Those kinds of things, those are real accomplishments that help real people in real time. Those are things I like to see happen. And, we've had success with some of our transportation projects, roads, bridges, that kind of thing. I suppose one way of looking at it is you've had a successful term if there hasn't been a whole lot of ink spilled on the front page of the local newspaper. So, and I think we've had a pretty good year that way.
You've also been able to move Rockwood Terrace along.
Yeah, there's another big one. Thank you for reminding me of that, David. Rockwood Terrace has been delayed, I would say, unfortunately, because of various things, not the least of which would be the pandemic. But that project is going ahead finally. We hope to release the tender for the actual construction of the building itself early January, and shovels should be in the ground by spring. I'm hopeful. That'll be a 2 or more year project to actually get that building built, but that is exciting to see that happen because a lot of people depend, and more people as time goes on will depend on long-term care.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the county has shown that transit, as it works organically here in Grey County, actually works. It's doable.
It is doable. Absolutely it is. Now, I mean, it's drawn on a fair bit of resources for a smaller portion of the population, but everybody needs different things. Not everybody uses every service that government provides, but you hope that the people that do use it find it valuable, and that's, if there was a economic case to be made for any service, transportation or otherwise, then the private sector would be doing it. And Greyhound pulled their buses there, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago now. There was just no way they could provide that service. So typically that's what government does. They do what private industry won't or can't.
Very true. Very true. And if you go back 20 years, 20, 30 years, there were subsidized bus routes all across Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
And that was canceled as not being efficient. So,
yeah. Well, and it's frustrating too when these types of services are, up front funded by upper tiers or upper levels of government, whether it's the feds or the province. And typically what'll happen is after 3 or 4 years, 5 years, or whatever, in this transportation case is 2025, the provincial funding is scheduled to stop. And that's going to have a significant impact on our budget should we choose to continue that service. So as you can imagine, the lobbying is fierce, shall we say, to make sure that funding continues. Will it? Who knows?
Sounds like you're going to have some interesting conversations at AMO.
Well, that's one of them. Absolutely. And there's a few. So that's one of them. And we're going to make it quite clear to the minister that, this transportation, while it's not, I'll say, widely used by our population, the population that are using it relies on it for employment, healthcare, a number of other means of moving. So the return on it is, I would say, not bad in terms of, is it beneficial to the community? Is it making money? Absolutely not. It'll never make money. But is it making our community better for those that are maybe needing that service? Absolutely it is. So that's the case we'll be making to the minister. Whether our message will be heard or not, I don't know.
What have you specifically selected the deputations you're going to make at AMO at the end of January yet?
Yeah, and I was hoping you wouldn't ask me what they are because I don't remember, but that is one of them.
Sure.
Another one is the Ministry of Health, because as I mentioned just a minute ago, there the remedial housing facility there on 14th Street. The province has promised that the funding for CMHA to staff the facility 24/7 is coming, but they won't say when. And, we've had the facility done for, completed the renovations for at least 2 months, maybe 3 months now, and still no funding. So we want to go to the minister and say, hey, we got this great facility. Would you mind funding it so we can staff it properly? That kind of thing.
But you don't need subway trains, do you?
Don't need subway trains, no. Although a train
Mm-hmm.
would be good. Put the rails back on that CP rail trail. That's a pie in the sky thing for me. I really rue the day that we pulled the rails up on that route, because wouldn't it be nice? And you and I have talked about this many times.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be nice to get on a dayliner in Owen Sound and run into Union Station?
Mm-hmm.
That would be pretty nice.
That's right. But such is life.
This is progress, as some people call it.
Yeah. So AMO is at the end of January, correct?
Roma, actually, which is the
Roma. Sorry, not AMO. Roma.
No, that's fine. It's Roma's an arm of AMO, but yes, Roma is at the end of January. Good Roads used to be in February. Now it's in early April. And then AMO itself, the big one, is in Ottawa this year. It'll be in August. And
Okay.
excuse me. Typically, we have delegations at each of them.
Sure. Well, pay attention to the minutes and we'll all find out what happens.
That's right.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, Brian, and come back because, I got a few more questions to ask.
Good.
So, all right. Friends, I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking, and we'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
This is Rogers TV.
My name is Matthew Rutledge. I'm a 60 scoop survivor, born in Red Lake. Was adopted from there to Toronto at the age of 4. A lot of our brothers and sisters, family members got separated from each other. That was the government's goal, to break that connection from brothers and sisters. Basically taking the Indian out of the child. Right now, they're still trying to find themselves. Originally, my birth name is Harvey Halverson. In my high school days, teens, I was trying to fit into society. I knew I was First Nations, but I didn't know who I was inside. I think later in life, I started that journey. I am proud, Anishinaabe man, who I am now. I love life, who I am.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Grey County Warden Brian Milne, and we're having a conversation about the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things. No, mostly the good things. That's what really matters. Hey, Brian?
Yep, that's right. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Now, if you had your druthers and you could present a wish list to either Mr. Bethlehem Falvey or Mr. Ford himself, what would be on that list?
I guess what would be on that list would be a broad theme, and it would be one of the themes from our recent strategic plan, and that is building communities for the future. And to build any community, you need to bring everybody along. And just to pick a topic, homelessness seems to be, an ongoing issue that has got really large and really urgent in the last, shall we say, 2 or 3 years. The county, Grey County, provided over 13,000 nights of shelter for primarily Grey County residents who, through largely no fault of their own, find themselves homeless rather. And so what I would ask the minister or the premier is, what is truly important to our communities here in the province, in Grey County in particular? And, I see the province, even as recent as the last day or so, with the deal with Mayor Chow in Toronto. One of the big ticket items that was talked about was Ontario Place. And I've been to Ontario Place many years ago, and it's a great facility. I haven't been there for years, so I have no idea what it's like now, or if it's even still being used. But to pour billions of dollars into a playground on the edge of the lake, when we have literally people living rough at highway interchanges in tents this time of year, that's not building community. So we need the resources and the ability to bring all of those people along, all of the residents, to feel like this is home and they can participate in our community. And everybody participates differently, but everybody needs to feel like they can participate. And currently, the way that this whole healthcare at a really broad level is being funded, we're not bringing everybody along. And my real fear, and what keeps me awake at night, is we are going to lose some community members this winter because of weather. And I really don't want to see that happen, but I have to think that it could, and it very well might happen this winter. And that would be my primary ask of the premier. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we need to build our community, as I say, so that everybody can participate to the extent that they want to.
Very true. Very true. And the county has a number of programs, aside from the fact that it is responsible for social services.
It is very much so. Yes.
It's not a local thing. It's not your municipal council. It's a county issue. But the county does have some very good programs like SOS, run through county paramedics in partnership with the Canadian Mental Health and Public Health.
Our staff at the county do a tremendous job of squeezing every nickel that we do get from the province, or the feds for that matter, to provide services for all the disadvantaged people, or in fact all the residents of Grey County. They do a tremendous job, but at the end of the day, there is just not enough to help everybody. And that's the frustrating part. And some will say, well, the job would never be done. There's always going to be more demand. Well, maybe so, but we can't just stop and say, oh, well, I guess we're never going to solve the problem. We got to keep trying. We got to keep going ahead. Otherwise, like I said, we're going to lose people, and that's not good enough. In a country like this, where we truly are so blessed compared to the rest of the world, I've said it many times, the best Canadian is a well-traveled Canadian, because by God, if you go in some parts of the world, you'll find out there are not many disadvantages to living here in Canada, or more specifically in Grey Bruce.
Very true. Very true. I've done a bit of global traveling over the years. And one of the things that I constantly found myself doing when I got back into Toronto Airport was, oh, this place is clean. There's no trash.
There's no soldiers walking around with automatic rifles.
Absolutely. You can move with great freedom. Yep. Because there's no highway checkpoints.
Yeah, it very much does focus the mind if you're in parts of the world where those things are happening. And the two most prominent areas of conflict, the Ukraine and the Gaza Strip.
Yep.
Boy, I don't know what some of those people, the privations and the things that they're having to do is just to survive day to day, hour to hour, is mind-boggling. I don't think most of us, myself included, I have no idea what that would be like. And I don't want to know.
Yep. Now, just to shift the focus just a touch, the province announced restructuring for public health units, and it's flown under the radar. And the reason I know it is because full disclosure, I served on the Board of Health for 6 years, although it's been 3 years since I've been on the board. Is that just a revisit of what was being done before, or is this a new project, so to speak?
Well, I think it's the same project. The province was looking at amalgamating some of the health units, some of the smaller ones, and we don't. I sit on the health unit board currently, and we don't get a lot of information from the province other than to say, well, yeah, we're going to do something, but not right now. It all came to a halt because everybody wanted to focus on the pandemic, and rightly so. But then we start to hear things as the pandemic loosens its grips on our communities. We start to hear things from the province that, well, we think each health unit should serve in the order of 500,000 people. Pick a number. Well, 500,000 people is a lot of area, a lot of geography in rural Ontario. So there's some, well, I shouldn't say jockeying, but there's some speculating going on as to who's going to be the dance partners this go around, or who would we like to work with, or who do we not want to work with? That kind of thing. It's almost a parallel back to amalgamation again, 20 some odd years ago. If we don't join with somebody, is the province going to swoop in and say, you and you hold hands and go off and do your job? There's lots of that speculation, as I say, going on. To come back to your earlier question about another topic, would it serve the population here better? Probably not. I mean, you're still going to need the public health staff on the ground in Grey County doing the good work that they do currently. You're going to have some amalgamation or some reduction possibly in numbers of administrative people, senior administrative people, but you're still going to need, payroll, HR, all those functions of any corporation. You're still going to need them. So to me, it strikes me as a project, somebody looking for a problem to solve. That there's really no problem. Nobody's asking Queen's Park to do this necessarily, but Queen's Park out looking for a problem to solve. And I don't know how this one came to the radar, but it seems to have, and we'll see what happens. But it's frustratingly slow.
Well, yeah, but that's the way it has been. We shall see what we shall see.
Yeah.
I think your point is well taken that if you're going to have a health unit of 500,000 people, that's basically all of southwestern Ontario.
Well, it's a lot of it. Yes, it's probably 4 or 5 counties for sure.
And what do you do with because part of the health unit's work is not, they don't go around looking for jobs to do. It's legally mandated.
That's right. They have services that they must provide.
That's right.
And so we're already doing that. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to understand why this is a problem. I really don't know. No one has explained this to me. I've queried MPP buyers a couple times about where are we going with this? Why are you doing this? There's lots of work to do. Why are you seemingly making a stand on this one? I don't know, but I'm not getting a lot of answers.
Well, that may be, should you be reelected, that may be a topic for future conversation.
Well, there's no doubt the topic will come up. Yep. Yes.
Well, one other topic that is, and we've alluded to this, is the budget. And you were down to a 9.9% tax increase.
Yeah, and that's where it sits currently.
Where it sits right now.
Yeah, we have another. We have 2 budget meetings in December. One on the 8th, I think, and one on the 15th. And so staff will. Well, let me back up. Staff started this cycle by coming to council. I think 3 meetings, and they called them pre-budget consultations as to what do you want to see? Where do you want to head? That kind of thing. Because this budget is going to be brutal in terms of increases, because the increases we're seeing to provide the services that we provide have, like everybody else's, skyrocketed. And so if we're going to do the same things, that's fine, but your taxes are going to have to go up. The tax levy is going to have to go up. Or do we cut services? That's sort of the pre-budget theme, was sort of where do you want to head? So now we've kind of given that direction generally. Now staff will put the whole budget together for us, draft budget, and come to the December 8th meeting. And that's where we'll start to really drill down to, okay, if this program's calling, you're suggesting that we need $1 million to do this project. Can we do it for $750,000? Or do we even need to do the project this year? Can we push it off? And that's an old trick that we like to do, but all that does is kick the can down the road. And so now your project that would have cost $1 million this year is $1.25 million next year. So it's given that inflation was running at, I don't know, what was it, 6-7% there for a stretch early in this year. Now we're down to under 4, I think, but nonetheless, the price escalation of a lot of things, and we talked earlier a little bit about Grey Gable, or Rockwood rather, the long-term care project. Holy mackerel. The prices that were quoted to us is what this project's going to cost. That's why it had to be scaled back, because there was just no way. It was unaffordable. It's still going to be very expensive, and it's going to take a lot of years to pay for this project. That's not to suggest that it isn't needed or it's not worth it, but those kinds of things really, really kick the bejeepers out of your budget. So how how we do a 1 or a 2% increase, that's not doable to do the same services and keep it at that level. I think you're going to see some real surprises when the budgets start to really become more transparent as what stuff is costing. We started at 12.2 or something like that at the county. We're now down to, as you say, 9.99. There's going to be some wailing and gnashing of teeth before we get anywhere near 5% or thereabouts. And I'm not saying that's where we need to get to, but if we want to go lower, there's going to be some serious choices to be made. Sure.
And that's what I'm hearing at the lower tier as well.
Yeah.
That, it's not going to be pretty.
It's not pretty at all. It's not pretty at all. And it's no different than anybody's household. Instead of, I've seen people say, well, we're not going to pay for 3 or 4 streaming services on your internet. We're going to pay for 2. Because I think municipalities are at the point where there's no longer nickel and diming various budget lines. That line's got to go. That we're just not going to do that anymore. And when you stop and really consider how little of the annual budget that the county or indeed any municipality has a direct impact on, it's actually a very small portion of the budget. So to have significant impact on the whole budget, you got to chop a fair little bit out of this one corner of the budget. And so those discretional things are hard to let go, because at some point years ago, presumably there were groups or people or councils that thought those services were valuable to the community. And that's when we come back. We've come all the way around, David. What is building communities? And it's those little things. It's the arenas. It's the little parks. It's the transit services and those kinds of things that make a community livable. But they all cost money. And now we're seeing it cost serious money. Do we really need those? Or do we ask our taxpayers to dig deeper? That's a hard question, and it's not an easy answer.
But that's what they pay you the big bucks for.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'll remember that on the 8th of December.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what some people would say. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've said it to your face.
Sure they have. Absolutely. Yeah.
But the question is, what is the role of upper tier in terms of making community better? I mean, you've outlined several things that upper tier does, social services, but that was downloaded from the province onto the upper tier municipalities.
Yep.
So they fund it, but you guys do the work.
Yeah, and they continually ask us to do more with the same or less funding. Well, it is less funding because if you consider the amount of population growth we've had, and it's no different than the hospitals. I know this year, most hospitals, if not all of them, got a 2% increase, but typically hospital boards would get 1%. And if you're in, your costs are going up, labor costs and everything else are going up even 4 or 5%, that doesn't work for very long. And we can't run a deficit. So something's got to give. And is the property taxpayer, satisfied that we're doing what we should be doing with their tax dollars? Time will tell.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to keep informed about things like the tax, the budget and the tax and the various things that we support in a community.
Yeah, I think so. And you raise the question of that's what we get the big bucks for. That's what anybody struggles with when they get into this job. It's not the bucks, it's not the money, although a few shekels is appreciated, but it's, am I having a positive impact on my community? Am I doing good work here? And you like to think you are, and that's what keeps you going. So regardless of the decisions at the end of the day, you have to satisfy yourself that you did the best you could with what you had to work with. And, you know, anybody that hasn't been in this position maybe wouldn't appreciate that. But that essentially is, it's no different than any other corporation you sit on as a director. You have to do the best thing you can with what you got to work with. And it just so happens that these are your neighbors and community members that you're affecting. And anyway, without getting too sappy about it, it's very gratifying work, but it's not easy.
What's the biggest risk that is facing Grey County today?
Well, I don't know if it's the biggest risk or not, but one of the larger risks is labor levels or staffing levels. We're no different than any other employer in Grey County or across the province or the country for that matter in trying to recruit good, well-qualified staff. And we have challenges in trying to get enough staff to do the work that we need to do. And you know, we had a debate not that long ago about what we were going to do with our pay levels. And I know pay isn't what motivates everybody all the time, but if you're not competitive in your pay, the other things don't matter. I don't think, excuse me, I don't think anybody would begrudge a snowplow operator in the middle of the likes of even a couple nights ago, keeping the roads clear. I don't think they'd begrudge them a decent wage. And I think the county does pay a good wage, but we have to be competitive. And the biggest risk is, well, we're not going to pay that. We just simply won't or can't, but mostly won't. And if we don't have those operators out there, again, now our EMS, fire, ambulance, police, they can't get to what they need to do. And that puts serious risk at our residents. So not all of our services are life and death, as some of those are, but those are, I think, some of the biggest risks that we have. There's only so many bodies to go around. And if we're not getting the ones that we need, then we're not doing what we need to do to keep our community safe and functioning. So I would say that's one of the bigger risks that we work with right now.
It's always helpful to hear that, because while our politicians will say we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, it's also helpful to hear what the biggest, you know, to use a cliche, what keeps you up at night.
Yeah, those are the sort of things. But those are the things that keep me awake at night. But on the other hand, the staff that we do have now, I sleep well at night because I know that things are being looked after. Even if we're shorthanded or whatever it is, I know our staff are doing absolutely all they can to get the job done. I know that. I don't need to be told that. I know that. We had a staff appreciation event at Grey Roots earlier this fall, I guess it was. I forget now. I think it was October. It doesn't matter. We had a lot of, and it amazes me, the staff, the county employs over 1,000 people, and about half of them are in long-term care. And the other half are, you know, spread amongst all the other services that we provide. And we have a lot of really good people in this organization, and I'm quite proud to be the warden of all those people. And that lets me sleep at night knowing that.
It's interesting. You said that there are 1,000 staff on the county.
Yeah, about roughly.
That makes Grey County one of the larger employers in the county.
Yep, probably outside the healthcare sector, we're probably the biggest employer.
Yeah, that's useful. It's a useful perspective because we don't think of those services as a key economic driver, but it is.
Oh, it's a huge one. It's a huge one.
Yeah.
And a lot of employers look to us to sort of set the tone for employment across the county. I think, maybe not formally, but informally, they're watching what we pay and how we, treat our staff. So that's why it's you don't want to be the bleeding edge, but on the other hand, you need to be aware that people are watching.
Well, if the snowplow drivers who work for Grey County aren't plowing the roads, that's a real hit on the economy.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, yeah. And we have a huge, or not, I shouldn't say huge, but we have a very, very dedicated economic development group of people. Mm-hmm. Savannah Myers and her group do a tremendous job, and it amazes me the inquiries we get from outside the county, employers that are looking to set up shop here or set up a satellite or brand new industries, the hydrogen hub, all that talk about hydrogen gas, that's just amazing stuff to me. I don't pretend to understand it. I'm not a physicist or a chemist, but that kind of stuff is just, and they do a great job of making sure that those companies know what's available here, and they want to come. They want to come here, and that's amazing to me. Little old Grey County, we're doing great stuff here.
You're not the first politician that has said that. I know Mayor Boddy is. I just interviewed Lisa Thompson of our MPP for Huron-Bruce. She said the very same thing. Tremendous enthusiasm over the potential. Yep. That Bruce County, but also Grey County has.
Yep. So
it's a very interesting way to look at it. Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? I guess as a politician, you got to say it's at least half full, if not full to overflowing.
But nobody asks how big's the glass. I think we got a huge glass here, and whether it's half full or 3/4 full, we got a huge glass here, and it's full of potential. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next few years.
Well, I have one final question for you before we take our leave.
Sure.
Are you going to fly a kite in 2024?
People tell me to go fly a kite on a regular basis. So yes, I will.
Okay. You will be. So
were you down to the kite festival?
I wasn't, but I heard all about it.
Boy, I was amazed. I'd never been to one before. Didn't know such a thing existed. It was pretty cool. It was really cool. Some kites are really, really big.
Yeah. Well, Warden Brian Milne, thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking today, and best wishes in your quest for re-election, and go fly a kite.
Thank you, David. Always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
And you, friends, thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking. I won't tell you to go fly a kite because we'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hey, I'm Jay Crawford.
And I'm Sitter Gano. And make sure you tune in on Attack Rap every week on Rogers TV to make sure you know what's going on with your own sound tech.
What are you here for?
I'm here. Score 40. Score 50. Come on. That's it?
There's a new member of the 60 Goal Club.
David Pastrnak.
60 on the season. The game breakers are